Fear isn't your enemy. Fear is your catalyst. And let me tell you, fear isn't something that stands in your way. It's your spotlight. And in today's episode, we dive right into it. So, welcome to my Saturday Live, where I share with you some of my experiences. And of course, we are going through some of those very important and intricate stories and lessons learned that I share in my book, Gumption. And I think everybody can relate to having fear because we all do at one point or another. Fear of not being good enough, fear of not being seen, and doubting ourselves if we do things. And some of those fears can be very legit. Some of the fears can be life-threatening. But in most instances, it's fear that we put on ourselves, right? And yes, there are, of course, situations where it's a good protector, that those fight, flight, hide responses that we have, that is instilled in our body. Because when we're in danger, we have to do that. But the thing is, what I'm talking about, oftentimes fear shows up because of something new in our life, because we are put into a situation that we might fear we look like idiots. I've been in those situations many times. Now, the question is, what do we do with it? And there's a misconception. The misconception is that fear is the one that stops you. But let me tell you, if you feel the fear and you step through it, no matter what, that is gumption, because you don't let fear stop you. And when we talk about this kind of fear, well, even if you have to run away, you just have to do it. Just go for it. And don't question yourself. Don't ask yourself, is this the right thing? Go for it. And I shared in my book many of those situations in my life and what happened to me, how I went through it. And one of that was a very dangerous situation where I just ran. But the other one was not a dangerous situation, but it felt like it was a dangerous situation. And this is when you take charge of that situation, it makes you stronger. And every time we do that, we gain more confidence in ourselves, in our actions. There was this one time I was maybe 12, maybe 13, but I think it was 12, that I was with a group of children in a camp. And it was a fun time. And one day, our camp leader said, hey, tonight is a very special day. We are meeting up with a group at a dance parlor. And it was one of those community meeting places, right? And we had different rooms. So there were 12 girls per room. Like we had those bunk beds, right? And I remember we're getting ready. We were all excited. Oh, yes, let's go for a dance. And we all were helping each other, picking out the perfect outfit. And then it was time for us to go to a meeting place. And what we heard our leader said, so remember where we went today? That's where we're going to meet. And that's what we heard. Remember where we went today? So what we remembered was a walk, like a little hike we did through the woods, and there was a clearing, and we thought that's where we would meet. So listen, this is the power of communication, or also the danger of miscommunication. So if you do not communicate what you want in the right and correct way, it can go south very quickly. And so it was for us. Our room understood something different. We understood we're meeting at that clearing that we were earlier. So we had to walk through the woods, and it was an early evening. So the light, it was in the summertime, the light was still up. And so we walked, we all had a good time, and we were the first group to arrive. So we sat down in a circle, we chit-chatted, and we were wondering, when are the other kids are coming? Nobody was coming. And then the sun started to set. And we got just a little bit nervous, but well, oh, and then one girl said, oh, you know what they're going to do? They're going to scare us. They probably hide somewhere and want to just scare us, coming out of the woods and saying, hey, or something like that. And I said, yeah, probably right. So, and then we started sharing ghost stories and scary stories. And it gets darker and darker and darker and quieter and quieter and quieter. We only hear those owls now, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And the sun was gone, quiet. And then we realized nobody's coming. We are at the wrong place. So now it was dark and everybody's getting scared. And I started hearing some girls, weeping. And I thought to myself, oh gosh, what are we going to do? And then I don't know what happened, or I don't know how I got the strength, but I felt something from inside that said, Sabine, you need to step up. You're the oldest. I think that's what it was. You are the oldest in the group. You have to be strong. And so I always had a good sense of direction. And what I did is, all right, girls, we're getting through this. I mean, I had fear. I was scared. But I got the strength to ignore the fear because I wanted to help the others. So I asked everyone to hold hands, and I gave everyone a number. I was number one because I was leading them. I had everybody holding hands. I said, we're going to get home quickly. Let's take a shortcut. I knew if we would go down the hill, we would reach the path again, which was winding up the hill. And I know if you go straight down, we would get home faster. So everybody has a number. And then I started going, and it was dark. And then I remember I felt those spider webs that are there in the evening. And I went through bushes or like little trees that were in the way and spider webs. And then I kept stopping and asking for numbers. Okay, everybody shout their number. 1, 2, 3, 4, until 12. So I knew everybody was still there. And finally we reached that path, and then we could see in the distance the light of the camp. So we were all more at ease. So finally we reached the camp. And of course, back then, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. You can be assured that the camp leaders there were very worried because they were missing 12 girls. But we were just glad we reached the camp. So why am I telling that story? Because fear shows up in many different ways. But when you step into the fear, despite the fact that you feel the physical, what's the word that I'm looking for? You feel it physically in your body, your butterflies, you're maybe a little bit shaking. But if you take your focus away from that and focus on others that you could help, or focus on something, even if there are no people around you, but focus on something that you want rather than that fear that's holding you back, that's when things changed. And this is what it did for me. And then your confidence will grow. And that was, I think, the first time that I realized that, not consciously, but subconsciously. And of course, when I started writing my memoirs and was looking for those stories, and all of a sudden, those memories were coming back to me. And I was talking about leadership. How do we become leaders or develop leadership? And that story popped right back from the deepest subconscious drawers that I had there. And that's when I realized, wow, that was one of the starts for me becoming the leader I was meant to be. And even in school, sometimes people were asking me, hey, I was always the go-to person. And I didn't realize that at that time. But that builds your leadership, no matter what. And I bet if you think back on a situation in your life, a story that happened, you see, oh, wow, I stood up, or I pushed through. This is true leadership. This is true gumption. When you get through, even if everything inside you screams, no, don't go there, right? So that is my experience. That was my experience. And as I said, I shared it in my book. And if you want to have an advanced copy, let me know, and I will email it to you. So just go to my email, sabine@sabinekvenberg.com, or leave a message here on social media. Why am I telling you this story? Because I want you to think of fear a little bit differently. And over the years, I thought about it a lot. And of course, writing the book, I thought about it a lot. And I even created a talk on how we can flip fear. I call it my fear flip method. Are you ready? So my fear flip method is looking at fear differently. Flip it. And how can we do that? I gave each letter a meaning. All right, you may be familiar with false evidence appearing real. Sometimes they're real evidence. Like in this case, in the woods. That was very real. Oftentimes, yes, false evidence appearing real. And that is most of the time when you start something new, perhaps, or you have to go up on a stage and start speaking for the first time. There's fear, but it's not something that will harm you. It's something that your body is not used to, your mind is not used to, and your body thinks, oh, don't do it. Maybe they laugh, or maybe you forget your words, or whatever it is. But it's not dangerous per se, but it's still real. My flip fear message is a little different. And this is what I learned through my life, but this is also what I know many people have told me, shared with me, how they got through fear. So, are you ready? Number 1, F. And this stands for faith. Have faith that it will turn out good, and that there are invisible forces that will help you through that situation. And if you are a believer, it doesn't matter what religion or whatnot, if you believe in something, God, higher power, whatever you may call it, those are unseen forces. We don't know that entity, that creator, that guardian angel. We can't see it. We may feel it if you're in tune, but that's what faith is all about. And you've heard it many times. And right now, one of my peers is going through some pretty devastating things in his life. Surgery, right? If you hear the C word for cancer, that can be very scary. And that one person is even very verbal and open online, going through his brain surgery. But one thing he always, always, always says is his faith. That his faith gets him through, and he keeps his positivity. Oh my gosh, I admire people who do that, despite the fact that it's devastating if you have this kind of situation in your life. And there are many, many other ways. And oftentimes, the faith is something that gets us through, and faith is something that can help us bring the fear level that we feel in our physical realm, in our body, can bring it down. So think about that. What does it mean to you? And E stands for enthusiasm. This is, I think, something that was always within me. I have that enthusiasm. Now, listen to this. And it brings it back to faith. The word enthusiasm comes from the Greek root en theos. Literally, translated means the God within. That's faith. That is that higher power. That is that spark, that divine spark we all have within us. Because we are all children of God. We are all created by something higher than us. Of course, on the physical realm, we are created through your mom and your dad. You're created through your mom and your dad, right? Having a good experience. That's the physical part. But there is just something beyond that physical, that soul that each one has. And I believe that is that divine spark. So, and if you feel that, you can't be anything else but being enthusiastic about your life, about what's happened. And even in difficult situations. And trust me, I talk about in my book about wonderful things that happened, but also very dark times in my life where I questioned what we sometimes do. Why is it happening to me? But here's the good thing. What I've learned, it's not happening to you. It's happening for you. Every situation we go through is for a reason. It helps us to either grow, to learn something, which is growth, to move forward, which is growth, to realize maybe I was on the wrong path. And if this wouldn't have happened, I would have stayed there. Let's switch. And when you stay in those dark moments and don't have that enthusiasm, that positivity, it is harder and you get more into your physical pain. So positivity, enthusiasm will help you flip that fear. In this case of my peer who's going through very difficult time in brain surgery, and I follow his path, he openly shares it. And that's his way of coping with this as well, but also showing the world what faith does to you and how you can stay positive. He always has a smile, even after his surgery. I, I just I just have to say I admire him for that. So this is a shout out to Russ. I have to say that now because he is sharing his journey publicly, and so I will tag him on this video because hey, you know, when you do this publicly, you are always inspired by someone else talking about that, right? So that is the E. Now, next letter A stands for action. And I am so, what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm always bringing action into everything that I do, everything that I teach, and I encourage my peers, my clients to always take actions. When I have my talks, action is critical with everything because we can learn, we can know things, but if you don't take the action, nothing happens. And you may remember, for those of you who have not listened to any of my Saturday lives or don't know my story, this book wouldn't be here today if I wouldn't have taken action. Somebody gave me the nudge to write my memoir, but there was also a time where I had to say yes to pitch that idea, and then saying yes when I got the book deal, and then saying, okay, I'm going to write the book, taking physical action, writing every single day. Maybe not every single day, but doing it until it was complete. These are actions. And even now, doing this Saturday live, I said from the day I started it, I'm doing Saturday live now every single Saturday until my book launch. Because I want to start sharing some of the stories and some of the little wisdoms and nuggets that I've learned from it. And I know many people deal with fear, doubt, and not feeling good enough, which comes back to fear. Everything comes back to fear, really. And that's why I think it's so super important to talk about it. And taking this action brought me where I am today. All right, now the next letter, R, that I am flipping or that I give a meaning that helped me look at fear differently. R stands for resilience. Meaning, yeah, you can take one action step, but if this didn't work out and you would stop, you go right back. So resilience means going through, not doing things one time or thinking a thought one time or learning something one time and stopping when it's getting too hard. No, resilience is to go through, pushing through, trying it again. Resilience is to think about, hey, I got this diagnosis. I'm getting through. I'm getting through. And I do whatever I can, whatever's in my power to be resilient and push through. And even being resilient in something you want to achieve. Maybe you want to be on a podcast, at somebody's podcast, and you get a no. Well, you can say, this didn't work out. Maybe what else can I do? Maybe I can add some more value without even asking that I want to be on the podcast or on a specific stage or talking in front of a group, whatever it is, right? You fill in the blank. It's different for everyone. But I'm just taking this as an example because I have a podcast. Then I say, let me just do something for that person. Maybe you send them something that would be helpful for them. Or simple thing like, hey, I listened to your podcast. I listened to this episode and this stood out. And I gave you a 5-star review because it really was beautiful, or whatever you say. It has to be, of course, real, authentic, not something fake. I'm always, when I say something, always come from your heart and being the authentic you. And then you do it. And then maybe after a while, you do some comments on posts, anything to stay on their radar. And maybe you invite them to your podcast if you have one. I often do that. That is a great way to swap. And then, all of a sudden, you can ask again. And you never know. Sometimes even through different connections that you build, all of a sudden you come to that person. That is resilience, not giving up. Or you want to achieve something and it didn't happen in a few weeks, but maybe in a few years. If you keep that on your radar, if things change, you can always change. But that is what resilience is all about. Not giving up because it's getting hard, but trying it in a different way. And this, in a nutshell, is, let me put it up here, what I'm sharing in my book, Gumption. Sacred whispers, bold moves, and the courage to become. And that's what it's all about. It's the courage to become your next greater self. And that book is being released on August 4th. And if you want to have an advanced copy, let me know. And if you want to be in my launch VIP group and invited to my VIP party, let me know. I will put a link in the show notes or in the description where you can get in touch with me, and I will keep you posted because right now we're working on some incredible things. Wow, I have to keep it a little bit more quiet because it's not quite done yet, but we are working on something that is very powerful. And as soon as it is ready to be released, you bet I will share it with you. All right, my friend, that was my episode of today. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if so, if you're watching on YouTube, I would love and would really appreciate if you can give me thumbs up, leave a comment, and if you have not yet subscribed, please do, so you won't miss another episode and don't miss when I make those big announcements. And if you are watching, if you're listening on my podcast, of course, we love to have a 5-star review. And if you can leave us a short review in writing, that would be even more wonderful. Everything is wonderful, but it would be even more wonderful. And you can always leave a comment, ask a question. You know where to reach me. And if you feel that this touched you, or if you feel someone else could benefit from this episode, please share it with your friend. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you for being who you are, your unique self. And always remember, when you serve from your heart, when you follow your passion, then you can live the life you imagine. And for this, my friend, signing off. Bye-bye.